Yeah.
Share the
Oh, sure. Oh, it's nice.
So just concentrate.
You get to preach tonight.
Yeah. That's my cup of tea.
Wait to see. Then when he goes and writes a pulpit up there. Yes.
That's why you threw the seven. Put it out of the family. Right.
I don't know Vernon Electric guys that Sorry about that.
You're right, it's tired.
Someone else will pay for it.
Well, the nice thing is that it's not an electric because they'll let you absorb all the shade of heat.
It's also,
Right?
I'll be retired by now. I'll figure it out.
Right. Well, but you need to figure this out before you retire. Because after you leave, I'm not sure.
When you look at it, technology, electric is really a real challenge.
Seems like we're pretty cool, but you're right. You're right.
And course,
Still like Canada.
Oh, sure. That's no problem. Another thing that I've been asking people, you know, you've seen what? It's the whole screen.
how much needs? Can I go and show? I always want to be front center. Alrighty. Okay, ready?
Oh, wow.
Scary. All right, everybody, can you hear me? Is this loud enough? Does that help better? Okay, well, we'll get started. I'm going to start by introducing Kayla Wilson, who is our program director for the Energy District. She'll be our master of ceremonies this evening. So let's. I can hear it.
Hello, hello. You just need to put it closer to your mouth.
Okay.
That is better.
All right. So here's the
Hi, thanks, Val. Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla. I recognize many of you. Thanks for coming in tonight. We really appreciate it. Hi, everyone online as well. This is the second of our Rural Recharge series. So we're excited tonight to talk about our rural energy economy, and we have I'm gonna eat it. And we're excited to have Dave Maxwell here, who will be presenting from Vernon Electric, as well as Al will be presenting for Vernon County Energy District. So before, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Energy District. We are a fairly new organization. You can go ahead and switch it. Oh, this is just the kind of the run of speakers, everything that I just mentioned. I'm going to have a little bit of conversation and question and answer. There will be time for question and answer at the end. If you have something that's really pressing, go ahead and ask it, but we would, for the sake of time, wait until the end. And then we are going to kind of take our words and put them into action. We're going to be splitting up into volunteer work groups. If you're interested in being a part of that, or if you're not, just it'll be a short little do-up of 5 minutes or so. We'll just kind of break into some groups and think about how we can actualize some of the things we're thinking about. So this is just a little bit of an overview of the Energy District. How many of you are familiar with Vernon County Energy District? Actually, the question should be, how many of you aren't? Okay, so there's a few of you in the audience. Great. Well, definitely take a pamphlet, because that's where the heart and soul. Yes, great. And for those of you online, and if anyone wants a pamphlet, you should also just visit our website, or I can send you one as well. But really, the idea behind the Energy District is local energy planning, coming together at the local level. Because as we're about to talk about, energy planning and energy work is all really done from a top-down sort of perspective. And how do we as individuals and community members have a little bit more action and say in the energy transition that we're all going a part of right now? So we are a nonprofit, and we kind of focus on these areas. I like this because it talks about energy planning, public engagement, market transformation, readiness, and advocacy, and we're kind of just right in the middle of it. There are 10 other energy districts that exist in Iowa. That's where it got started. The idea came from the idea of the water conservation districts back in the 1930s. And so we're kind of taking that idea and using it in the sense of not water and conservation, but along with energy. The idea that our energy system, we're all sharing the same energy system. And so how can we play a role and have some voice within that? If you have any more questions, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Please let me know. I'm happy to talk anytime. One other thing, I do want to introduce our board. This is the crew of folks that are very integral to making this happen and just the whole organization happen. So we have our president here, Alice. Then we have Toby over here, and Sam Laskowski here, and Alicia over here. So if you have any questions, those are the folks to talk to. So thanks. Oh, and this is kind of, sorry, I forgot this was the slide. The idea right now there's $76 million that leaves our county, that we spend in energy costs, that we spend on the energy that we're producing and that we're using here, leaves the county. And so how can we possibly, potentially, keep that money here locally and use that for our own needs and our own economic development to benefit here? Al really tells it better. The idea is 76 million could actually be about $10,000 per household. So think about that, $10,000 for all of us to have every year in our pockets here. And then obviously it doesn't totally exactly translate that way, but it is just a way of thinking about what could we all do with $10,000 individually and have that money moving throughout this local economy. So without further ado, actually, David is going to speak first. So I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there I am. I've been working for Vernon Electric Cooperative for 30 years now. And a lot has changed, of course, over those years. I guess you could say it's been kind of a paradigm shift in what's happening now. We're really seeing a lot of distributed generation coming online. We've got electric vehicles coming online now, and we never thought of these things 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I didn't even know I'd be working on a computer. So yeah, a lot has changed over the years. So I put together, I think I have about 9 slides here, and I, not only introducing myself, but we actually, Vernon Electric has a couple board members here too. So Samantha's playing double duty. She's on Vernon Electric's board, and then Orland Bachman is also on the Vernon Electric board. And then I guess the other person I'd like to point out is Trevor Clark in the back there. He works for Richland Electric Co-op, which I'll be bringing up in my conversation as well. So, yeah, next slide, please. So I wanted to start out a little bit talking about the history of the co-op. And that's what I know best, is the history of our co-op. And as we move to MISO, we're going to talk about our Vernon Electric Co-op, and we're going to talk about Dairy Power Cooperative. We're going to talk about MISO, the Mid-Continent System Independent Operator. And I know less about them than I know about Vernon Electric. So we'll go into a little bit more detail here. And I just kind of put this picture up here, and hopefully you can see it okay, you folks in the room can see it okay. There's a lot of stuff here that's hard to see. It's an old picture. It's probably circa 1930 or so. And I think this picture nicely explains, why we're here. That's the main question. Why are we here? So, looking carefully at this picture, back to that picture, there we go. So, yes, it's hard to see. I'm going to point some things out here. What we see here, and I wish I had a little pointer. We got what I think is valleys in kind of the refrigerator 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you can't see what they're doing, they are doing laundry. We have the proponents here, they have a big pot over a fire, boiling water, and whoever's got stick there, and anybody know what they're stirring up inside that pot? Clothes. Yes, that's exactly right. They're doing laundry. And then these 2 areas over here, we got the rinse bins. We have explaining well house here, not a well house, but a spraying house here with water coming out. They're filling up their buckets with. So we got that. In the background, we have a clothes line where they're hanging their clothes. We see a chimney here on the house. We see a cornfield in the back, and even a little credit back there for storing corn. So this is what life is like if we have electricity in rural Vernon County. This could easily be right here in Vernon County. I'm not sure if it is or not, but it could be. And so these folks had to deal with everyday life without the power of electricity. And so they had to build a fire when they wanted to do their laundry. They had to build a fire when they wanted to cook. They had to build a fire when they wanted to heat their house. And because they needed that fire for so many other things, they had to deal with that fire when they did not want to heat in their house. There was no air conditioning, and their houses probably got pretty warm when they built that fire. And that's where summer kitchens came about. They couldn't pump their own water. They had to rely on streams nearby or springs. And fortunately, in this area, we have a lot of springs. And so, I'm going to play a little trivia here. So this is presidential trivia. I've got a question for you. So in 1935, the Rural Electrification Administration was formed, and the REA Act was signed into law. Anybody know which president was president of the United States in 1935? Okay. FDR is correct. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So that was in 1935. he signed the Rural Electrification Act, which allowed farmers out in rural areas to get a loan from the federal government at real low rates and form their own utilities. Because areas like local here, they had electricity around the turn of the century. Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla, they were inventors that came up with the idea of, hey, let's take this electricity that we now have and let's create these central station electricity generators and expand out and serve other people with this generation and provide electricity, which is something needed, and we can make some money at the same time. And so investor-owned utilities, which we'll talk about later, were born. And not only were they providing a service, but they were making money while doing it. But in order to make money, they wanted as many people in a small area as possible so they didn't have to run these electric lines all over the place. So when folks like these came to town and said, hey, you guys have electricity in town, we want electricity too. We can bring electricity out to our farm. And the investor-owned utility said, yes, we'll do it for an exorbitant amount of money, or no, it's not even worth our time to do that. So farmers and people who lived in rural areas were not getting electricity. And by the time early 1930s came around, the farmers started organizing and finally were able to get low-interest loans from the federal government to form rural electric co-ops. So the rural electric co-ops have their roots in farmers. And I would make the argument that the farmers' wives were really the ones that really pushed for it because they had to do stuff like this. Build fires to do their laundry and put their irons in the fire to iron clothes and have to cook over a wood stove, and there was a lot of work involved with that. So that's kind of the history of why we are here. And I could even make the argument today that if we decided to shut the doors and put Vernon Electric out of business, that these industrial utilities still would not bring their lines out to rural areas. And so you would not have electricity in rural areas even today. So that's kind of the history of Vernon Electric in a nutshell. Go ahead. So a little statistics for Vernon County and Vernon Electric here before we get to some maps here. So when I started the naval slide, I put the number 30,000 as the population of Vernon County, and that's about right, but we don't want the population of Vernon County. We want to know how many buildings basically are served by Vernon Electric Co-op in Vernon County. So I pulled out the U.S. Census from 2019, that's the latest I could find. And their definition of housing units, it's housing units, employer and non-employer establishments of Vernon County. That's what that 18,000 is. So that's the best I could do to find out about how many buildings there are in Vernon County that need electricity. So of those 18,000, and again I had to do a little digging here because Vernon Electric serves more than just Vernon County. We got some counties outside of Vernon County. So even though we have about 9,600 members, of those co-op members, about 6,200 of them are actually within the borders of Vernon County. So, pulling this out, there's about a third of the buildings in Vernon County are served by Vernon Electric Co-op. Now getting down to renewables in Vernon County, and just to let you know, this is, I did not extrapolate this out to just Vernon County. This is all of Vernon Electric service territory. So this will be all 9,600 members. Taking the last one first. So we have a lot of members that have solar panels on their roof, in their yard, wind turbines, and if you add those all up, that's about 1.5 megawatts of renewable energy that's available to be used. When you take the solar that Vernon Electric owns along with our community solar farm, this is a picture of our community solar farm, that adds up to 1.125 megawatts. And then if you take the Darrowland solar projects that are within Vernon County, there's two of them, and I'll point those out in a second, it all adds up to about 4.625 megawatts of capacity that we have right here in Vernon County for renewable energy. Next slide, please. So starting off with a map of Vernon Electric, this is right from our website, and the shaded area, or the gray area, is approximately the areas that Vernon Electric serves. And you see some white pockets in there, those are other utilities. So just generally speaking, we've got Xcel Energy in the western half, we got Alliant Energy over in the eastern half. We have some municipalities like Lafarge and Viola, or municipal utilities that serve those areas. We have some areas where the Bangor utility comes down into our area. I'm not sure if they come into Vernon County or not.
Westmead, and also Westmead Municipal.
Westmead Municipal, yep, that's right. And then this area here is Xcel Energy. This is Xcel Energy. These are all pretty much Xcel Energy. And then, and of course, like I said, I got Lafarge and Viola and Westby are all municipal utilities.
And a little bit of Alliant.
Yes, Alliant over serves Hillsborough, Ontario. So
Scenic Rivers, that's right.
yeah, and down here, Scenic Rivers comes into this area down here. Trevor, Vernon Electric, they come in right over here. This is Alliant over here, so I think we covered all that down here. This little scheme down here is where all the utilities that kind of butt up are within Vernon Electric Co-op, and just to make sure we got them all, we got Xcel Energy, Alliant Energy, Westby Utilities, Caxton Utilities, Lafarge Utilities, Bangor Utilities, Viola Utilities, Scenic Rivers Energy Co-op, Vernon Electric Co-op, and then actually we butt up against Oakdale Electric Co-op too, over by the Livermore and the Running Walk areas. So, next slide, please. So now we're starting to go into a little bit unknown in my expertise here, but I know a little bit about Darrowland. I know a lot of folks who work there. We have about 500 employees that work in La Crosse and Genoa and other parts of their service area. So Darrowland came from the merger of two other electric co-ops. So in 1938, there was a generation and transmission co-op, referred to in the industry as a G&T. One was called Wisconsin Power Cooperative, and the other one was called Tri-State Power Cooperative. They were formed by 15 rural electric co-ops that began, as I said, in 1935, 36. Richland Electric Co-op was the very first electric co-op in the state of Wisconsin. Vernon Electric was the second. And so that was formed in 1938, and then by 1941, they merged those co-ops to form Darrowland Power. So that's when Darrowland Power was born in 1941. And they built their first generation station in Genoa, which is in Vernon County, and that was a 6 megawatt coal-fired power plant. So just to kind of put 6 megawatts in perspective, I mean, a large business would use 6 megawatts now. I mean, I'm sure there's dairy farms that have a 6 megawatt generator just to supply their power when the grid power goes down. I know we have farms right here, I'm not sure it's Vernon County or Monroe County, that have 2 megawatt generators right on site for their own purposes. So 6 megawatts in today's perspective is pretty small. The Genoa power plant, I believe, and maybe somebody can help me out with this, but they're decommissioning right now, I believe it's in the neighborhood of 700 megawatts.
No, it was 300.
It's on 300?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I should point out, remember that the number before was 4.25 megawatts of solar. And Dave's now talking about 6 megawatt generator. So there's one generator that's bigger than all the solar in the entire Vernon Electric.
Yeah, we can get that 4 megawatts to all operate 24/7. We got that we needed that 6 megawatt generator back in the 1930s. So yeah, just the number one generation that we have right now would have almost met that whole need back in the 30s. So, and then in 2010, Darrowland, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, Darrowland joined MISO after being part of the Mississippi Valley Power Pool, which they started in 1960. And I'm old enough now, I'm going to run out long enough that I remember this. All of them, you probably remember it too, when when Darren was contemplating joining MISO, and I remember there was a lot of discussion about it, and I know at the time, I don't think the folks at Darren thought it was going to be a great idea. They thought it was, they kind of drove their heels a little bit about doing it, but eventually they were kind of forced to join MISO. And really it hasn't been a bad thing for Darren, but they were really nervous about it when it all happened. So, before you do that, we'll put pictures here. I think this picture there is from 1952, but that's down in Genoa with one of their older plants. And then, I'm not really sure what this picture is in the corner. I kind of liked it because it's that big cement block there, lowering right there. So it's co-op. It says DB co-op on the one side, and then it says 1945 on the other side. A little hard to see. And so I'm taking it to me that this is some kind of cornerstone that they were laying for something that they were building in 1945, and I don't know what it was, but it's no pictures up there in there. All right, next slide. So, that picture is Darren's present headquarters down in La Crosse. I don't know if any of you have driven by there. It would be near kind of like where Goodwill is there on the south side. Trying to think what else is nearby their facility. It's right behind the DNR facilities down there, right along the Mississippi River. So that's their headquarters in La Crosse. They are a cooperative, so just like us, they're a not-for-profit utility, which is different than the investor-owned utilities, which are for-profit. And they serve 24 electric co-ops. So Vernon Electric, Richmond Electric, and 22 other co-ops make up what Darren serves. So Richland and Vernon would be known as distribution cooperatives. Darren is a generation and transmission cooperative. They also serve 17 municipal utilities, which include Lafarge and Viola right here in Vernon County. And when you add up all their consumers, it's about 600,000, which would equate to 281,000 meters that they provide power to. So that would include Vernon and Richland and all the others. Currently, their mix of renewable, or of all their energy sources, their fuel sources, is 70% coal, 20% wind, 6% natural gas, and 4% other renewables. And they have made a commitment that by 2030, it will be 43% coal, 27% wind, 27% natural gas, and 3% other renewables. Next slide, please. So this is Darren's footprint. Vernon Electric would be this green right down here, and our neighbor Richmond Electric is right below us there, that square. So there's 24 electric co-ops on there, and they're in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and then there's one co-op, Joe Carroll Electric Co-op down in Illinois. So Darren has to deal with all these different state rules in all four of those states. And then this particular map also shows, even though it's a little older now, it's a few years old, those little sunspots that you see on the map is where Darren has large solar arrays, at least 1 megawatt solar arrays. And you can see there's quite a bunch of them right in our area. So there's 3 of them in Vernon County. Actually, the one right outside our headquarters there must be Vernon Electric owns now, but that energy goes to the Darren system.
So Dave, just to clarify, it's like less than 1% other renewables, and yet those are all solar, right? So the solar that's less than 1% in the previous slide is, right?
What the previous slide again?
The current, 4% other renewables. So
Yes.
all of that solar fits within that 4%?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then, Richmond has, is that a 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt? 1 megawatt solar array, just on the other side of Iowa, is that right?
Yep.
Down in Richmond County. It's expanding all the time, and this doesn't include all the wind that they have, and that's not on this map, because I think Darren's renewable energy and resources is mostly wind, not solar.
Hey, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry to jump in, but I just want to clarify. That last slide, can you go back? So that 4% other renewables, 3% other renewables. So are you saying less solar by 2030? Like you're actually going down 1%?
It's going to be less of the percentage of output.
Okay, thank you. That's it. I just want to make sure I was seeing that clearly.
Yeah, because wind is going up, natural gas is going way up, coal is going down, other renewables, so that would be mostly solar, because wind is a different category here, in percentage-wise would drop a little bit. It's not meaning it's going to be less solar, it's just percentage-wise it'll be less.
Okay, thanks, Dave. I just clarify before we went.
Let's see, I think we covered everything I wanted to cover in that slide. So, next slide. So now we move on to MISO, which I know even less about. Mid-continent independent system operator. And there's their control room. They have 3 locations in Indiana, in Minnesota, and then also, I can't remember the 3rd location. Is it St. Louis?
I think it's St. Louis.
Okay, I'll go with that. So, and I didn't research this thoroughly, and Alan and I had this discussion earlier today about independent system operators versus RTOs. And now it'll be on the next slide what that is. And I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'm not going to go to that quite yet. So this is right off their website. They are committed to reliability, non-discriminatory operation of the Bell Power transmission system, and collaborating with all stakeholders to create cost-effective and innovative solutions for the changing electric industry. So that's right off the website. They serve 15 states, including Manitoba up in Canada. And when you look at the MISO mix, and keep in mind this is 471 market participants, which includes Sterling. Sterling makes up about less than 1% of this participation, and serving about 42 million people. So we're going from the 6,900 or 6,800 in Vernon County to now 42 million people being served by MISO. So next slide, please. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, go back. I forgot this last bullet. So the total mix is 42% gas, 29% coal, 19% renewables, 8% nuclear, and 2% other stuff. All right, next slide. So this is MISO's map. Pulled this right off their website. And this is their, what they call their LMP map. And this changes by the minute. It's all color-coded. And you can see the color codings over here. And these are market prices that folks like Daryl are selling into and buying out of this market. So you think of MISO as that little swimming pool in the backyard. And so Daryl is selling 100% of their energy into the MISO market and then buying back what they need. So this is a very high-level conversation on this because it's very complicated, very detailed. But basically, that's what's happening. Daryl has to commit all their energy into the market and then buy back what they need. Now, because Daryl has some of their own resources, they have their own power plants that we just talked about, they can hedge that market. So if they go out of this map and see that the price is really high, they can try to produce all they can with their own resources to hedge that market. And if prices, they also may be able to sell into the market at those prices, and which is good for Daryl. But there might be times where their resources might not be available, and so they have to buy from this market that could have high prices, and then it hurts everybody. Because since everybody is in our participation is not for profit, any profits that we make go directly to the members, pass through, and any expenses that we have also the members have to pay for it. So yeah, we want to try to hedge those markets as best we can through Daryl. Kind of interesting is this, down here, there's this Texas hub. I remember I pulled this map up when that polar vortex hit, when everybody was having all those problems in Texas, and all the energy was gone, and people was, all the pipes were freezing, and And so this here is a mill, so that's basically about 4.8 cents per kilowatt hour that you could buy or sell into the market at that particular hub when this picture was taken. But on that polar vortex day, that price was getting close to, I believe, like $900 for 1 kilowatt hour. It was as high as it can possibly go.
That's great.
If it had more investment points, it probably would have gone higher, but it was maxed out. So, next slide. And this is how MISO fits into the continental United States. So the aqua color is MISO, independent system operator. You got the Southwest Power Pool, the West non-RTO. And this is the discussion I had. What's the difference between an RTO and an ISO? So RTO is Regional Transmission Organization, and ISO is an independent system operator. Well, I know that the independent system operators are not for profit. I don't know about the RTOs. Maybe they are not saying anything, but yes, no. So that's all research that we have to do.
What is it? RTOs.
RTOs are Regional Transmission Operator
In
Organization.
between them. They're in between them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know, it's like Texas down here is, as we found out during that polar vortex, is they're kind of their own little island, and they don't like to play with others, and they're an RTO, or actually a non-RTO, which I'm not sure the exact definition of that is. So, but we saw a lot of weaknesses in that transmission organization in Texas when that polar vortex hit. And you can see there's another kind of state of California kind of mess its own, and there's a bunch of small ones over on the east side of the state. So the MISO is a big organization. It's when you compare it to all the other transmission organizations, it's just about as big as they get. The Southwest Power Pool is pretty good. Of course, the West Power Pool is very big as well. Okay, next slide. So I'm kind of done talking about the relationship between Vernon Electric Co-op and Darrell Power and MISO, and this is my last slide. And I kind of want to talk about how renewables kind of mix into that. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and now I might refer to this as well. But this down here is the market capacity in MISO. So remember, this is MISO we're talking about. So all the capacity that they have, 2% of that, we don't know what it is. 19% is renewable energy, 42% is gas, and 29% is coal, and 8% is nuclear. So on that polar vortex day, February 15th, 2021, what they were putting out at that time was renewables went down to 9%, gas went down to 33%, coal went up to 44%, and nuclear went up to 12%. So coal and nuclear kind of was the base load that they needed on that polar vortex day, where renewables and gas were less available on that day. And then the third column is where they compare that to a fair weather day, a high of 53 degrees, a low of 34 degrees, and it shows there on those fair weather days, renewables do great. 26% of their output was renewables, and then all the other stuff went down. So coal did actually go up a little bit on that particular day. So and kind of the takeaway there is that even though we are moving towards renewables and we're going to get there, we can't do it overnight, and so some of the space load stuff that we have that are carbon intensive are going to become necessary for a little bit until we can make that switch over. So that's all I got, and I'll turn it over to Al, and he's going to be my follow-up.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll be around for questions later on. What's your pointer on?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just think that before we move off this slide, these after Dave and I talked this morning, I did actually go and look at the overall on this day was about a little over 1 million megawatts. So this is for the whole middle part of the U.S. And on this day, the whole entire load on the system was about 800 million, no, 800,000 megawatts. So what that is, as you can imagine, I mean, people are running around the hills, with diesel trucks that plug in their computers, and houses are, so there's a much more demand. But one of the things this tells me, so we may have had a single renewable energy this day, it just wasn't as big a piece of the pie. But this also shows me that, we tend to favor renewables when we can. Those are the ones that are shut down when we don't need them. So, that's important to keep in mind. So, that's me. Okay, so what I'm hoping at the end of today, we're going to work on here, having a better idea of how to run flows through this whole system. Also, and when we understand that, we can better understand some of the solutions, the things we can do to save money, and how we can work with our utilities to help out the transition to renewables and reality. Here's our slide again, just to reiterate, the $76 million. The fact that this is a lot of money that this is what actually, this isn't how much we spend on energy, this is how much we use our county every year. Within the gas tank, some of that money stays here at the guy that owns a gas station, but 85% of it goes to Vernon County. You electric. Some of that money stays here in the area, but about 60% of it goes to Vernon County. That's what the $76 million is. This is what actually we use. This isn't how much we spend. And we're not going to we can get to this. So, just kind of a little bit to show the economy. This map, it's kind of hard to see because it's so small. But the little green lines are the natural gas lines that come through Vernon County. There's a big part of Vernon County that doesn't have any natural gas. Most of the residential, the villages and cities have natural gas. People out in the rural areas do not. It's a good question.
Come down to the cross the river. You know where it's
Generated was the energy source.
There's an natural source. Oklahoma. Imagine, a tremendous amount of it comes out of the Dakotas we're doing fracking, because that's a byproduct of fracking. So a lot of it does come out of there as well. And this map is just a general overview of the transmission lines that come. Here's the long lines are the transmission lines. And one of the things that's kind of worth noting is so cell energy serves Livermore. This transmission line that comes down from the north through attached to the Westfield is actually an Maxwell transmission line. And that these substations in Westfield, which run out of Westfield, Liberty Bell, is that the other exit?
You see actually two there in Westby. One is the municipal substation, and the other is Vernon Electric substation.
So, yeah. I guess the reason I'm putting that out is these are Dairyland power substations. So Dairyland has to sell energy a little bit of money to be able to move electricity down that transmission line. Okay, so which makes sense. Why have two transmission lines just to have one and share it between the two entities? So, okay, next slide. Just to get a better idea of what the energy that we import into Vernon County, that's $76 million, what's the makeup of that? And this is in only BTUs. So the gasoline, diesel, natural gas is the biggest chunk of it, propane, and electricity. Altogether, we consume 5.6 trillion BTUs of energy. And just for, if you don't know exactly what a BTU is, It stands for British Thermal Unit. And a BTU is the amount of energy it takes to raise 1 pound of water 1 degree Fahrenheit. So that's a lot of BTUs. We can convert that to a calorie, is when we talk about electricity. So this is the number for electricity. It's at 1.8. We also want to point out, as we electrify, as we make our cars electric, as we switch over a lot of the heating in our homes to, like, say, heat pump water heaters and mini splits and other heat pump technologies that are way more efficient, we should actually be able to get by with about 1 billion kilowatt hours worth of energy. So as we replace gasoline, natural gas, as we replace these fossil fuels with electric counterparts, the total energy we need goes way down.
Al, maybe you should explain why that is just a little bit more.
Next slide.
Okay, you're always one ahead.
So let's talk about what is the definition of efficient. We all know what it means. Get the most amount of what we're trying to get for the least amount of input. Minimum waste effort or energy. Okay, next slide, please. And go ahead and click again, Kayla. Well, here we go. So this is a chart that's put together every year by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And this is for the entire United States. Every year the United States consumes 92.9 quads. That's a quadrillion BTUs. So almost 93 quadrillion BTUs. And just for those who don't know, a quadrillion is a 1 with 15 zeros behind it. I had to figure it out, I didn't know. So these what this is on the left, this is showing all of the energy that is input into a high energy system. And the amount, those numbers are quads for each one. Okay, you can go ahead and click again, Carol. So right now, let's look at the electricity part. So in other words, if you take all the coal, all the natural gas, all the nuclear energy, everything that goes into electrical generation plants, we have 35 quads of energy going into those plants. But you look at what comes out, 12.4 quads come out as electricity. Almost 24 quads come out as waste. No. Go ahead and click again, Kayla.
Heat, basically.
Yes, it's heat. That's what goes up the smokestack. You look at transportation, very similar ratio here. The gas and diesel that goes into our cars and trucks adds up to 24 quads of energy. It only takes 5 quads to move our vehicles. The other 20 quads are wasted energy that comes off our radiators and goes out the exhaust pipe. The conclusion I draw from this chart is burning stuff to make electricity or burning stuff to move our vehicles is not efficient. And the fact is, solar panels aren't efficient either. They're about the same efficiency. About 20 to 30% of the energy that strikes the solar panel actually gets converted into electricity. The difference is sunshine is free and doesn't generate CO2. Coal and natural gas cost money and they do generate CO2. So I'm not so worried about the efficiency of solar panels. Where that comes into play is basically how much land it would take to generate enough electricity. So, okay, next.
Can I just put an exclamation point? When we electrify, we automatically cut our energy needs by 2/3, right?
Right.
So that's just that's part of the transition that when people say, how would we do that? It's important to understand that we need a lot less energy when we electrify.
Yeah. So getting back to our utilities here a little bit, and I'm not going to go through the whole list, but what I really want to point out on this slide, because Dave already covered who all the utilities are. But to me, the thing that's kind of important to point out is the different ownership models. We've got, electric co-ops, which are owned by the members. We've got municipal co-op, or municipal utilities, which are basically owned by the people in that municipality, it's owned by the municipality. And then we've got IOUs, which stands for investor-owned utilities, and these are owned by, Wall Street fat cats, for lack of a better way of putting it. So, but this is owned by investors. This goes out to make money. Members are there to serve their members, and not to profit is not their motivation. So let's follow the money a little bit. This is just our electric bill. I'm actually in Scenic Rivers. I'm the North Sliver in the south of Vernon County, where Scenic Rivers is our electric co-op. The two main parts of our bill are the fixed charges. I'm not going to worry about that too much, but it comes out to a little under $40 a month. That you pay no matter what. You've not bought one electron of electricity. That's what you pay just to have the meter. Everybody has a fixed charge if you got an electric meter, and that is needed. But the part I want to really kind of go through today is the energy charges. This is the money that actually we're kind of interested in today. Our rate at Scenic Rivers is 10.96 cents per kilowatt hour. Take the next slide. And just to help us as we follow along our journey here, this is from Scenic Rivers annual report last year. The two numbers that we're focused on here are the cost of power. So Scenic Rivers is a distribution co-op, and they buy their power from Dairyland Power. So this is the amount of money that Scenic Rivers pay to Dairyland Power. And then, as Dave talked about, that money goes into MISO. It kind of moves through this whole system. Okay, so it's about $18 million that Scenic Rivers pay for 222 million kilowatt hours. And some extra numbers there. I don't have to read them all. So if you take that $18 million and divide it by the solar, you get so Scenic Rivers pays Dairyland Power about 8.24 cents per kilowatt hour. Go to the next slide. So the way that breaks down, you can see here's our 10.9 is our total cost. About 25% of it stops at the kilowatt. The other 2/3 or 3/4 is what ends up going to Dairyland. This is the 1.24. Okay, next slide. Now, the other thing that's important to know, at Scenic Rivers, the way they handle it if members install solar is, there's no retail offset, there's no banking hours. You just get 3 cents per kilowatt hour along that. It kind of changes a little every month. And they call that avoided costs. And what it really is, it's the wholesale cost of the wholesale price of energy. Remember when Dave showed the map of MISO and it had those little dollar amounts for each megawatt? Well, at the end of the month, those prices go up and down during the day and from day to day, but generally, at the end of the month, it works out to about 3 cents a kilowatt hour. And so as a member of Scenic Rivers, that's what Scenic Rivers would pay, not the electricity that I don't use. And you can think about, here's kind of the way I found it, it's easy to understand, we all have a car, you pay for the car, you pay for tires, you pay for insurance. So the 3 cents is gas money. That's a good way to think about it. So you'll see here's back to our 10.9 cents. This is what stays with the co-op. The $6 million is the avoided costs, and then we've got about $11 million that's left over. What is that? That's how much we pay for the grid. Basically, that's how much we pay to support the whole grid, everything else that exists. Okay, it goes at $11 million again. It's cost, a lot of times they call it system costs, because that's what you pay for the system. And again, it'd be like, that's what you pay for your car. Whether or not. Okay, go on to the next slide. And just so you know, the grid is made up of a lot of different services. We've got generation, that's the one a lot of people think about, coal plants, wind farms, solar farms, so generation is one piece of that puzzle. Now, the other significant pieces in the lab is transmission lines. It costs money to put those lines up, it costs money to maintain them. But this is one we don't often think about when we think about the grid, and this is what we call other services. And for example, remote management services that are paid for on the grid. My understanding is the way this is administered is going to be changing, but like for example, for many years, you could call up and ask them to put a little device on your electric water heater that would let them turn it off when the load was really high, so they could control their load. And we got paid about $2 a month so that they could do that. Most of the time, you never even knew whether it happened or not, but you got paid about $2 a month in order for them to do that. Now you got paid that $2 a month, whether or not they didn't even have to turn your load off. You got paid the $2 a month just so that it could happen. And that kind of leads me to this point. So these services get paid even when they're not being used. They get paid whether or not they use them. And a really good similarity is, think about this. You pay for your car even while it's sitting in your driveway. You don't just pay for it when you're behind the wheel. So that's important to keep in mind. Some of this stuff needs to be there just for the handful of times we need it, and we still got to pay for it, even though we're not using it today. But the other thing that's important to keep in mind is the more of these services we have, the bigger the grid gets, the more expensive it is. That makes sense too, doesn't it? So if we come back to that $11 million that is the system costs that Scenic Rivers had to pay, how is that calculated? How did they come up with that number when you got 407 participants in the MISO grid, and there's a ton of power plants, and there's a ton of transmission lines, and a ton of services? How do they say this is your share? And in general, the way, this is highly simplified. This is super complicated. I don't think there's a single person on earth who totally understands it. But in general, this is the way it works. We take the total cost of that grid, the total cost of everything, and say, how much are you using one area the most? And that's your share. Okay? So, at the peak demand, how much is each entity using? And that's how that cost is calculated. So the question is, how big is the grid going to be? How big is big enough? This chart is from August 20th, and this kind of shows how the load is out there. So that's a hot day in the middle of August. You can see 45, there wasn't a whole lot of demand for electricity. In the morning, people wake up, they start taking showers and going to coffee makers, and then we get to work and turning on the lights at the store and the offices, and then they start coming home and the air conditioner kicks on, and by the time in the afternoon, that's when the demand on the system is the highest. And then it starts to drop off as
Just a reminder, this is MISO peak, not.
This is MISO peak,
not
exactly.
utility.
This is not Vernon Electric Cooperative. This is the whole MISO system. And it's also important to keep in mind, if you were to look at a similar chart for, say, Vernon Electric, or you can look at a similar chart for Excel Energy for Vernon, they would follow different, that chart would look differently. Because Vernon Electric handles more of the rural areas, it's got residents, it's got farms, the way energy is used is different than it is in a more urban area, or not traditionally down to the Twin Cities and Madison, Wisconsin. So it's different depending on where you live, because it kind of changes everywhere.
Yeah, but Al, it's not like dramatically different.
Correct. This is generally pretty close no matter where you are, but it is going to be, it will shift some, maybe a couple of hours one way or the other. So how do we control the cost? When we think about this whole big thing, what can we do to make to be more effective and from a cost perspective? Controlling it is really the number one thing we can do. If you think about it, controlling it reduces this 11 matter number. When we use it is more important than how much we use. And unfortunately, the rate structures that every utility uses doesn't really acknowledge that fact, or there's very little acknowledgement of that fact. Because you just save money by using less. You know, I pay 10.9 cents whether I use it at 2 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon. It makes no difference. So my electric bill is smaller when I use less electricity, not when I use it. And one of the side effects of that, of billing that way, is it creates larger peaks. You know, for example, smart thermostats are great. Everybody likes them. You can program your thermostats so that on those hot days in August, my house may be warmer, but nobody's home, so who cares? But I program it so it automatically kicks on at 4 o'clock. I'm getting home at 5. Now my house is comfortable. Everybody's got a smart thermostat. Everybody's air conditioner kicks on at 5. And that also happens to be about the same time they start. They get home and they hop in the shower, so now the water heater kicks on, and they start firing up the water, and wakes up there, and so this is a side effect of the way things are built. So the next thing that I talk about is load management, because that's really what we're talking about, is when we use electricity. And you've got flexible loads. These are things that make your water heater. You don't get when it runs, you just don't run water when you take a shower. You know? My air conditioner, same thing. I really don't care when it runs as long as my house is comfortable. You know, a car charger is another thing. You know, our car, we can charge it once a week, basically. You know. So it's really flexible. Some of these loads, we've got several hours freedom when you run it. Other loads, like your TV, it's like, okay, well, I don't watch TV at 8 o'clock. I don't want to wait till 2 in the morning to sit down and watch TV. You know, when I stick something in the microwave, I want it to ready now. I don't want it to run 2 hours from now. So these are the things that need to happen now. And just, you know, these aren't an exhaustive list by any means. But to me, what's really important about this, what I'm showing here, these loads that are flexible are the babies. The water heater is a big draw in your house. That's probably going to be a lot of houses that's 25 to 30% of the electricity they use. The TV is peanuts. You know, the microwave it's nothing. But the water heater, the air conditioner, car chargers, those are bigger use items, and they're the flexible ones. Yep. Storage is another new technology that's coming on, and it's actually getting, much more flexible and able to do a lot of things that even 5 and 10 years ago weren't possible. Look at that. Smaller units like this that are enough to power the house for several hours, up to maybe even several days. We got big units like these power packs that this is enough to power like a whole village for several hours or maybe even a day. Toby shared this formula with me. This is the formula to calculate the cost of storage. And if anybody's interested in doing that, talk to Toby, because he wants to look at it and he works it out. So then let's talk about solar production and how that relates to peak demand. As you can see here, This demand line is the same term we had before. But the solar is logically, and we peak at night and the sun is straight up in the sky. It's gonna, so you can see how that goes up and down through the day. It's interesting to note when this happens at noon in the solar demand, the peak use happens at about 4 in the afternoon. So we got about a 4-hour difference here, but they're not that far off. And if you think about the load management things we talked about, and you think about the storage, this isn't that, it's not that big a hurdle to get past. When we talk about batteries, one of the terms they use often is the word duration. And what that means is, if I put in a big battery and I'm drawing it at full capacity, how many hours it'll run. And a 4-hour duration is a common number that they're shooting for, and most battery packs have that. That's 4 hours. Look at that. That's just about exactly what we're talking about here. So use solar power to completely eliminate peaks. At least a lot of days out of the year is really reasonable. So just let me ask you a question. I mean, knowing what you know now, what are some of the investments that we can make that would keep our money local and help us transition to renewables? What are the things we can do? There's a lot. The term disruption, I think, is kind of appropriate because we're witnessing disruption right now. It's very obvious if you look at the auto industry. Every single car maker has, from 2 years ago, thinking electric vehicles were cute, to now every single one of them is committed by 2030, 2035, they're going to make gas-powered vehicles anymore. They've changed that quickly. Our electric industry is very much in a state of, we're going to be witnessing that. It is happening because there's so many new technologies. Things are changing so quickly. This is what's coming. So, hang on, it's going to be a wild ride. So, okay, I think that'll do it.
Yeah, now
Any
we'll open
questions?
it up for question and answer.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions or any thoughts?
How many solar panels would you allow per resident?
We would allow any number of solar panels, but once you hit 20 kW of AC capacity, you fall into a different category. So under 20 kW system, you would get what we pay Darren, our wholesale rate. Once you go over 20 kW, you get that avoided cost rate, which fluctuates from month to month. Actually, we found out that sometimes it's more than our wholesale power cost of Darren, but a lot of times it's less.
But also, Dave, if you're under 20 kilowatts, you true up in it every month, versus if you're over 20 kilowatts, it's in 15-minute intervals.
That's true.
That's important.
Yes.
Distinction.
Yeah, you mentioned under net metering where I think for Vernon Electric Co-op, it's if you generate more than you usually get the wholesale rate back. Where I'm in town here with Excel, and they allow you to bank the energy and then draw it down at a later time. And I'm wondering whether Vernon Electric Cooperative, why they don't offer that, or if they could offer that possibility.
So yes, we don't allow you to bank energy, but we do allow our members to bank dollars. So if you consume 500 kilowatt hours in a month, but you overproduced and put 600 kilowatt hours back to the kilowatt hour, so you have 100 extra kilowatt hours that you sold back to the grid, we would pay you for that 100 kilowatt hours and allow you to bank that to use at a future time.
But you would pay it at the wholesale rate, right?
Correct.
Now, because if I understand correctly, when you bank it, you can draw it down at the retail equivalent. If I understand how that works, say with Excel.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying Excel will allow you to bank that so they're going to pay you retail rate.
Well, they don't pay you, but in the future, your load increases. If you have money in the bank, you can draw it out without any.
So I think the difference is they're allowing you to bank kilowatt hours,
Yes.
but Vernon Electric is allowing you to bank money.
Right. The kilowatt hours would be equivalent to the retail value of it if you are able to use them in the future.
Right, yeah. And so from our take on it, we're allowing you to consume all the energy you can off of your solar panels, use that in your home, and then basically you've avoided buying that cost from Vernon Electric. So you basically, any energy you use directly from your solar panels, that's worth retail rate. But anything above and beyond what you consume in your home, the extra kilowatt hours, we would pay you for that and then allow you to bank that money that you get paid for that.
You can turn the microphone off. Make people and then.
Oh, the microphone's not helping for the people at home?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you all can.
So you guys hear okay?
Just project.
I'm still not clear about when you said if we electrify, we'll need less, we won't use as much energy. And I don't understand that.
Okay, so the question is, if when we electrify, how does that translate into actually using less energy? Probably the best example I can give, if you take a gas-powered car and then take the exact same car in an electric version, you know, and there's a Volkswagen Golf that has that. The gas version is going to get about 30 miles per gallon. Okay? If you take and equate the energy in a gallon of gas to the energy in electricity, the electric version gets about 120 miles per gallon.
I think it's the heat. Think about it. So all of the heat that leaves your car when your engine is on is wasted energy. It's not, it doesn't turn into locomotion, right? But when you have an electric battery and a direct drive, there's no wasted heat. So 100% of the energy in the battery is translated directly into locomotion. And the same on a large scale, for example, a coal-fired power plant, right? That thing creates an immense amount of heat. So much, in fact, that they have to site it near water so that they can continue to cool it. And so the heat goes out in the equipment that's generating it because it's combustion. It's so hot because they basically burn the coal, pulverize it, burn it, light it on fire to heat water, then the water steam goes up and turns a turbine, and that makes electricity, right? So much, it's 85% inefficient. 85% of the BTUs that you put in from coal leave as waste. Does that make more sense?
Yes, except what I'm wondering is about like our utilities. I understand about the cars, but does an electric water heater, does that use less energy for that?
And that is a really good point. So the question is, does an electric water heater use less energy? And does it use less or does it use more? And the answer is yes, it's both. And here's why. Okay, just take a plain standard electric water heater. Those are about 100% efficient. The energy that goes into that electric water heater, almost
Are you saying gas?
No,
Gas or electric
So an electric water heater, almost every speck of energy that goes into that electric water heater gets converted to heating the water. There's nothing for waste. But here's where it's less efficient, because like Alicia pointed out, that coal plant, or that natural gas plant that made the electricity is so inefficient. Now that electric water heater, if you look at the whole whole picture, that electric water heater becomes a lot less efficient. Because of how much is lost in making the electricity.
And then compare that with a heat pump water heater
Go ahead.
that Andy was going to say.
No, you're
So yeah, and that's where some of this new technology comes in, because like if you were to take an electric water heater and compare it to say a natural gas water heater, the natural gas water heater is less efficient because some of the heat goes up the stack. But if you take the natural gas that goes into generating it, now that natural gas water heater is much more efficient than the electric water heater. But switch over to a heat pump water heater that uses electricity, pulls heat out of the air, and uses that to warm the water. The heat pump water heater uses about 1/4 of the electricity that your standard electric water heater would use. Now, to use a heat pump water heater, it's about a wash with a natural gas water heater. So,
Well, what if your electric is also,
Right.
if the electric was all solar, then
then it's much more efficient.
you're golden.
I'll disagree with the efficiency part, but it doesn't produce carbon, and what was the other advantage of the electric over fossil? We talked about before,
Yeah.
I mean, the solar panels are not efficient, we talked about that,
Right.
but you don't have the carbon footprint.
Right. You don't have the carbon, and the sun is free, whereas
And
natural
the sun is
gas
free, that was-
coal costs money. So, yeah.
There are dams on the Mississippi River. Are they not generating electricity?
The dams on the Mississippi River generating electricity.
They are
I
not,
don't believe
they
they
are
are.
not generating electricity, no.
And I've had that question over the years too. Why doesn't Darylin put turbines out in the Mississippi River? And there's several reasons why they don't. One is it's very cost prohibitive. You don't have a large drop of elevation to spin turbines real fast. And then there's environmental concerns too. I mean, imagine what the DNR is going to say when you start putting turbines in the Mississippi River. So, I mean,
No, the dam's already. I don't know.
well, I mean, you're going to be putting water through a turbine, and so you got to keep the fish out of there, and all life, and so
Turbines
that's
are
going to be
different.
difficult to do.
It gets a lot.
It's the drop. That's why the Hoover Dam is almost not producing electricity anymore because the
Right.
water's not high enough.
The water's so low on the Hoover Dam, exactly.
And it's,
Yep.
and
Can I-
it's a lot
Can
higher.
I just add one component to this? That what these guys did such an excellent presentation. But one part that I really want to emphasize that you guys touched upon is when we're talking, because the next talk that we're going to be talking about electrify and decarbonize. Our goal is to electrify everything and decarbonize all the electricity, right? That seems kind of insane. But one of the important aspects of that is that we have distribution grids and transmission grids. And there's a difference between producing electricity inside of your distribution grid, and this is part of the energy ecosystem to me, producing energy inside of the distribution grid for use inside of the distribution grid versus producing how we have always, in the way the grid was built, in the 60s, 70s, these centralized, very large producers, and then we have to ship it a really long way to where people need it. So part of the electrification movement is not just electrifying everything, but also moving that generation in a much more distributed way, moving it inside of the distribution grid. We have a lot of efficiency that way, and in rural areas, the result is that we're gonna have a lot more control over the cost of that power and where it's sited, and it's gonna help build our own economies. It's economic development. It's a big part of keeping that $76 million inside of our county is reworking the entire grid to focus on our internal distribution grid instead of being reliant on these large centralized generators.
Dave, how does that fit with you? How does that fit with Vernon Electric Co-op?
Well, I mean, when I think about local generation, I mean, a lot of that money that's leaving the county is going to our neighboring county, La Crosse, because that's where Darylin is. There's 500 employees in La Crosse County that work at Darylin and are benefiting from Vernon Electric buying our energy from Darylin Power.
But we're not generating it in La Crosse.
Actually, we were generating it in Vernon County, but now that plant is gone. So, I mean, no, it's not La Crosse County, but actually a lot of that generation was right here in Vernon County, but it wasn't.
But what do you think, Dave? Do you think that there are energy costs to be saved by generating it inside of the distribution network?
Well, I'm not an electrical engineer, Toby and Al, they might be able to answer that better, but it gets very complicated because the grid was designed for the flow of electricity in one direction to serve a home, and now the paradigm shift is now the electricity is going to the home, and now it's coming back from the home back to the grid again, so the grid has to be set up so that it can accept electricity flowing in both directions. I don't know what that's going to do to the grid, but it may be the grid may have to be rebuilt.
Electricity doesn't care which way it flows at all. There are in terms of substations and transformers and things like that, you're right, that we would need to re-engineer certainly in certain ways and put things in different places, but we're doing that anyway. So we're already investing. Like all of the part that Al was talking about, what's that other money? That's out of our bills. We're paying it all the time out of our bills, and that is to build infrastructure. And we have a choice, well, we should have a choice, whether we build that infrastructure basically funding somebody else's private generation plant that's using fossil fuels, or do we repurpose that and use it for our own members inside of our distribution grid? And I feel like we're at a critical point where that question needs to be asked over and over and over, and not just assume status quo, business as usual. That's going to get us in trouble. Then we end up with these stranded assets that some utilities are selling off like hotcakes, and Dairyland's actually buying one of them. Dairyland in our name is buying this old natural gas plant and re-energizing it instead of building distributed solar inside of our distribution grid. And I just really question that when we're thinking about the long-term energy ecosystem.
Right. And I'm not Daryl, so I really can't speak for them, but
yeah,
I guess I would say that they're not building renewable energy. I mean, they are adding natural gas plants, but they're doing solar at the same time.
Yeah.
They're building both out.
And really, there's kind of a twofold things that are happening here. So one is kind of like, Alicia talked about it costs almost nothing for the extra electricity coming off of my solar panels to go to my neighbor's house. Very little. That's very efficient, takes very little bit, takes zero transmission lines. That can all happen within the distribution grid, okay? But the other thing that this transition to renewables, and this is the massive paradigm shift, is, I don't know if anybody in this room has got an extra $40 billion laying around, but if you wanted to build a coal power plant and generate your own electricity, you're gonna need about that much money. But you only need, $10,000, $20,000 if you want to put some solar panels on your house and generate your own electricity. So that's the big shift. The old way of doing it, where you had to build this big power plant that then provided for a lot of people, could only be done through big investments. The difference is now this is becoming an every man can participate game. We can own it and have it ourselves and power our houses and power each other and share it. And that's the big shift that's happening as well, is who owns it.
I just want to say that.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Just mentioning that Becky online says the big grid has problems with weather disasters. Fair weather scoring will increasingly be better with distributed generation.
So, and that does bring up another, the fact that distributed is, can and will be more resilient. When you add local storage and solar power behind it, in Texas, or even the village of Viola in 2018 when the flood came and Viola was without power for 3 days. If they had solar panels and a big enough battery pack there, the whole grid could have been down in Viola, Lafarge, would have still had power, and they call that a microgrid.
We now have microgrid forming microinverters. Mm-hmm. So that if you put them on your roof with solar and the grid goes down, as long as the sun is shining, you can use that power. We have the technology now.
Right. So things like your lawn, your refrigerator, and that stuff can still run even though you don't have power coming in.
And it's 7:53.
So, yeah, we got to be out of here by 8, right?
If the objective is to electrify the county, it seems there's
two primary questions need to be answered. How much power do we need? How many acres do we need? What solar panels?
Yeah.
I actually have that information this time around. Okay, you know, that one slide I showed, the total power we would need is about, seems to me it was 1 billion,
A little over 1
a
billion.
little over 1 billion kilowatt hours a year.
Was that for Vernon County and was that the meso?
Vernon County, that is Vernon County. To generate that would take about 1,750,000 solar panels. Okay, sounds like a heck of a lot of solar panels. To install those all on the ground is about 3,800 acres. Sounds like a lot of acres, but Vernon County has 337,000 acres of farmland.
That's
So that's
already in farmland.
That's 337,000 acres of farmland just in Vernon County. So 1.1% of the farmland in Vernon County would power the entire county. 1%.
And all of those landowners would have land leases.
That's not including roofs.
And that's not including roofs.
Doesn't include roofs and barns, because every one of those barns has a big pole barn, 60 feet by 100 feet or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of roofs that solar panels can go over. Parking lots are another good place to install solar panels. So we don't even have to use that much farmland.
Question to Dave, Dave, is Vernon Electric
Yeah.
ready for all this solar?
Well, like I said, it can't happen overnight, but yes, solar is going to come out. There's no question about it. We have to prepare for it, and we are prepared for it. And you know, as long as it happens in a measured and thoughtful way, yes, we can prepare for it.
I agree.
Yeah. Yep. And the key is we need to work with our utilities to make this happen in a smooth manner. So, Toby.
Yeah, I was wondering if there are any farmers here that can tell me what getting for corn and soy.
Oh, Kayla asked her dad.
No, the reason I asked, we were just at a Zoom meeting with the Iowa Energy District, and they made the point that in Iowa, they have a number that's on that.
$700 to $900 per acre per year.
Per year
For lease.
Per acre with solar panels.
Versus $250 to $400 if you're renting.
Their farm right now. So they also have figures on the amount of ethanol that an acre would produce versus how much
Oh yeah.
energy you get in your electric car. I think as you could drive on 1 acre of ethanol, you can drive 1 acre of corn ethanol, you can drive 75 miles.
I don't remember, but it was dramatic.
All just for land or
From the corn, from the corn on that one. But the interesting thing was that 1 acre is covered with solar panels, you've got like 75 miles, 75 cars, 75 miles. It's an astounding difference. Point being, you've got a small amount of land for solar panels to supply Iowa's electric.
Okay, let's move. Sorry, but we gotta be out of here and we should just at least introduce this.
Yeah, so I'm just going to introduce these. This is kind of how we're thinking about taking, organizing us folks and trying to support others in the county and making this transition. So we're breaking up into 3 groups at the moment, and these 3 groups will be participation, which I'll let Al quickly talk about. Or no,
That's me.
yeah.
Yep.
Alicia and Stan will be, yeah, go ahead.
And we're not gonna like break up right now, and so if people are interested, they should contact us and we'll talk to you. But basically, the participation part is really participating in utility, legislators, PSC, in decisions that are outside of our personal decision making. So with co-op boards, I think that there's a lot of possibility there with co-op boards, and I really thank all of the co-op representatives that are here today. I think that's a great beginning. Thank you, and Dave for participating. And then like our legislators, the PSC, Public Service Commission has, so anything that's outside, including municipal leaders, would be the idea of participation in our energy ecosystem.
And just so you know, there are sign-up sheets, if you are particularly interested in learning more about how to get involved in that group, go ahead and sign up and I'll connect you all. And then energy planning.
That one's me. So energy planning, and the idea here is what are the things we can do? You know, what can I do at my home? How can I help my neighbor, you know, do things at their home? This is actually making an energy plan of things we can do ourselves. How do we electrify? What should be electrified? You know, just helping to educate each other, but also helping to come up with the plan that it's going to take for us to actually
including energy
transition.
assessments and analysis.
Yep.
And then the third one is public education, which is a mix of Toby and Andy. And that is, right now we're thinking about how do we communicate. We're running this discussion series. What other things do are people interested in learning throughout the community? It's kind of divided into two things. Also youth, we're going to talk to Westby High School next week. How do we get youth engaged in this conversation? It is their future, so how do we bring them in? And then also, how do we just connect with the public at large? Is it more events, or is it writing, or whatever it is, this group would work
Or
on.
like technology tours, so people can see how things function, you know? How does a Powerwell battery function? You know, it's helpful to see it.
So if you have any interest, no commitment whatsoever right now, just go ahead and sign up there. That'll help us just get an idea of who we have in that space. And then the other thing that we're doing, as we mentioned last week, we have an energy innovation grant from the Public Service Commission. And that fund is used to help us do some energy planning throughout the district to kind of understand, or with us through the county, sorry, to understand what our energy use is and make some plans as to how to move the needle forward. And so part of that is it allows us to offer free energy assessments. We will be bringing on some staff to go out actually and to go door to door and go into houses and do blower door tests or do infrared stuff, but also it's helping people set individual goals of how they can over 5 years, 10 years cut down their energy use or transition to solar or what have you. So we are online with that, just kind of getting it started. You are our guinea pigs a little bit. If you're willing to fill it out, we'd super appreciate it. It's about 15 minutes to fill out. 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how much you know about your energy at the moment. And that will then help us to kind of, one, start collecting information about just energy use here, but also then help you individually to work on those goals. So I can share that link. You can take a picture of the link, but I'll email it out tomorrow or so. But if you could do that, I can put it on our website. Yeah, we'll put it everywhere. Just send it as many times as you'll see it. We'll send it to our newsletter. You'll see it. So if you do have any questions with that, in addition, we also are will be giving out a free Emporia Smart Plug to everyone. It's a Emporia system. It helps to it's a smart system that helps to measure your energy use. And right now, I'm getting used to this. It's all very new for me, so I have to do it in my house, in my microwave, and different things, just testing to see how much energy I'm using throughout the day. But there will also be long-term, those that do in-house energy assessments will be potentially offering full systems where they can connect to your electric box that would be able to help you to monitor it.
So measure all the circuits in your electric system.
So that is that.
Totally detailed.
Yes. These are just the overview. And again, we'll be here next month from now, December 8th, for Electrify and Decarbonize. This will be our discussion. Please invite friends and family, bring everyone, and please provide any feedback too. If there's other areas you'd like to hear more about, or if there's things we can do better other than our technology, let us know.
It'll be here.
Yes.
Yes.
December 8th.
December 8th, right here.
One other question. How about funding and or low interest loans for people who would like to put solar panels on their roof but can't finance it, can't pay?
Come then December 8th, and we'll have that. That's part of our electrification decarbonization. That's part of that. So we'll talk about that quite a bit more
And
next
if you
month.
want more, call me, Sam. I'll tell you all about it.
And last but not least, I'd like to just thank Dave for coming tonight.
And Big Al too.
Thanks everyone for coming. And thank you to Make Pride Gelato.
Oh, yeah, and thank you. Don't forget.
Don't forget
I put my jacket on with my car keys.
Thanks, you guys.